Kareem and I have known each other for 30 years, I guess. He played on the '92 national championship team for Coach Stallings. And yes, and I'm so excited for him to be here and share his story, because he is a husband, a father, a former football player, a chef extraordinaire, and one of my very, very best friends. God blessed me with having him in my life. And so it's wonderful. He is also a professor at the University of Alabama, and he taught at Shelton State for many, many years. So I'm anxious for you to hear his story. And he's my hero, so y'all enjoy.
Yeah. You just want to hold it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's right. Yeah, you can move over in all that sun, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Very nice to meet all of you. You guys have a wonderful church here, church group, and thank you, Linda, for that introduction. I am from Tuskegee, Alabama, a small town just in between Montgomery, Alabama, and all in that other school, the other town. And growing up, football was not something that was on my radar. Okay, I went to high school in Montgomery, Alabama, and had one of the administrators at the school asked me if I would play football when I registered at the school. I went to Alabama Christian Academy, and my initial response was no. And my mom said, well, he'll think about it. And during this time, I was a really fat kid, okay? So I still kind of portrayed my youthful image when I was young, but I was a fat kid, and my mom said, well, he'll think about it. And I know that she said that just so I can get some activity, get something going, and try to lose a little bit of weight. So I get out to football for the very first time, practice and off-season workouts, and honestly, it was the worst thing I'd ever experienced in my entire life. I'd never done anything like it. I didn't want to go back the next day. It was like, this is not for me. But I stayed with it because the coach that had invited me out, I didn't want to disappoint him. So I just kind of stayed out there. And just to kind of give you another idea how terrible I was really slow. They like all the measurables and stuff with football, how fast you are, how strong you are. I literally, you could clock me on the sundial. I was that slow. And so my coach asked me one day, what jersey number do you want? If you know anything about the jersey numbers, they identify the specific positions basically on those numbers. So remember, I'm a fat kid. So I said, I don't know, Coach, how about 37? And so, he kind of chuckled at me and he said, well, how about 73? I said, all right, I'm good with that. So we get out to practice, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I knew what a quarterback was, I knew what a touchdown was, and that was about it. And so as time goes on, but next year, my sophomore year, I grew about 3 inches or 4 inches. I went from being like 5'9", 5'10" to 6'1" in a short period of time. I lost about 40 pounds and started to be able to move a little bit more. And during spring practice, I figured something out. I figured out how to run people over. That became my favorite thing to do. And so that was my goal. Every play was just to run somebody over, knock them down, whatever. It didn't matter what the play was, that was my goal. And because that became my goal, it kind of grew into some recruiting and whatnot. By my sophomore year, I became a starter, played on both sides of the ball. In fact, probably the second game or so in the season, my coach pulled me aside, and this was a new coach that I had at this time. He said, "Kareem, I really believe you can play at any college that you want to go to in this country." And he compared me to a player that he coached in high school. His name was it was John Hand. If you're familiar with Alabama football, you know who that guy is. And so he said, "Right now as a junior, you're further along than he was as a senior in high school." And he went on to play Alabama and play the pros and everything. So I still didn't understand the magnitude of what he was telling me. I was like, I don't know, but okay, this is great. And he said, "Oh, by the way, the University of Miami called and asked about you today." So that was the first school to call and ask about me. And so, you know, there's no social media, there's none of the stuff that they have now, the rankings, like the 5-star and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I go on through that season, had a really good year, made All-State, All-Area, same thing my senior year. I got voted as Mr. Football for 2A football, and that was pretty exciting. And I was one of the top 12 recruits in the state of Alabama. And by this time, I was getting recruited by everybody. So every SEC school, schools all across the country, USC, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and just you name it, I was getting letters from them. And I did make up my mind about where I wasn't going to play. I didn't want to go up north because I didn't like being cold. So I was like, I didn't want to play in the snow. So that was, I made that elimination pretty quickly. But however, as things progressed, recruiting picked up pretty heavily. And believe it or not, Auburn was actually more aggressive in the beginning than Alabama was. And I had initially decided I was going to go to Auburn, believe it or not. Now, I've been to the games, I've been to the campus, and really liked Pat Dye at the time, and went to camps and everything. And the reason I decided I was going to go there was because of my mom. I stayed close to my mom. She was a single parent, and I figured I'd be close enough to help her out when she needed something. And that was my whole reasoning for deciding to go to Auburn. Okay? And so during my recruiting process, the coach at Auburn, he was a running backs coach, he asked me one day, he says, "Kareem, be honest with me. You an Alabama fan or Auburn fan?" I said, "Well, Coach, I've always been an Alabama fan." Right? And remember, they were recruiting me pretty hard. I never heard from them again after that. I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And he asked me if I would come play. I was coming. But anyway, you know, God works in mysterious ways, because not too long, a year we won the national championship, Pat Dye retires, and they get a guy named Terry Bowden. And I got to meet him on a recruiting visit at Samford University, and for some reason I didn't like the guy. Just didn't like him. So that worked out, because I don't think I would have lasted very long being there, just because for whatever reason I didn't like him. But Alabama picked up really hard. I got to meet Coach Moore, came to my house, and we talked a lot, been to a few games, and I turned into a really, really good recruit, and decided to go on an official visit to Alabama. And during that time, Coach Stallings asked me if I would come play for him. I said, "Coach, I'm coming. I'm coming." And so I fell in love with Tuscaloosa and the university, and had the opportunity to come here and play football. And although, I tell people all the time, football happened by accident, because I had no desire to play, had no idea about a lot of the strategy and what I was doing, but I just knew I just fell in love with running people over, and that's kind of my claim to fame, And so I get to Alabama, and during my recruiting process, Coach Moore said, "We're going to need you to gain a little bit of weight," because before I started playing, I was fat, I was big and slow and all that kind of stuff. Remember, I lost a lot of weight, and during that time, I needed to put on some weight, and so I did do that, but I did it in the wrong way, and I went from 265 my senior year to well over 285 by the time actually, I was closer to 300 pounds by the time I got to Alabama. And so I'm starting back at ground zero again. I've become kind of slow and not as agile as I was. And so I ended up, back when Hardee's was really good, I was visiting Hardee's every morning going to school. I get the sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit, 2 butter biscuits, and sweet tea every single morning. It was just really, really good. And so that's how I got all that weight put on. So, but anyway, so I found out I had to lose some more weight. And so I joined a club that I really didn't want to join. It was the offensive line and the fat guys club that had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go run the Coliseum every morning. So I ran every step in that Coliseum, up and down, all the way around. We did that for days on end, trying to lose a little bit of weight and everything. Coach Stallings really didn't want us too big on the offensive line, wanted us to be able to move a little bit and have some endurance. And so get through my freshman year, still not understanding the magnitude of what I was in the middle of something really special that was happening. The next year, we lost one game my first year there. The next year, we go on to win the national championship, 100 years of football at the University of Alabama. It was really magical. It was absolutely incredible getting to be a part of that. I was a redshirt freshman. I got to help the starters get ready for the games and had the opportunity to be right there in that national championship game and get to see all of the hoopla and all of the stuff that goes on and still not fully understanding the magnitude of what I was in. And so getting to be in a national championship game and understanding and knowing what we had, and I got to practice against these guys every day, and during the practice that we practiced the game plan and everything of what we were going to do, and I had to go against the starters all week. And if you remember seeing the '92 championship team or game, the thing that Alabama did with that defense and walking everybody up on the line of scrimmage was nobody had ever done that before, right? And during the game, they did it, and my first thought was, when did we decide to do this? Because we didn't do this in practice. Because it got decided the day before the game that they were going to do that. And if you really remember anything about them doing it, it looked like we were going to blitz, but we didn't blitz. We just stayed on the line of scrimmage and dropped back into coverage, and it really confused Miami, and it really helped us out. It was really incredible to watch that happen. So freshmen getting to see this, and I'm a national champion, and that was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Next year comes along, and it started to get where I felt like I should be playing, and I'm getting in a little bit better shape, and I figured out that I belonged out there, because my freshman year, honestly, when you're at a school and you're the top dog at the school, you're the best athlete on the field and all this stuff, and you get to a place like Alabama, you're no longer the top dog. Everybody else is what you got. They're stronger than you are, and I honestly felt like when I got to Alabama, the DBs and receivers were benching more than I was, and I thought, oh my God, they're gonna take my scholarship away from me. And we get to practice and everything, and things are starting to move along pretty good, and I thought, well, maybe I'll have a chance, out here, and I kind of earned my keep a little bit. And by my redshirt sophomore year, they put in a goal line package, or short yardage package. I got to get in and play a little bit, and that was really fun. And then by my junior year was a year that was pivotal in my career, because I had the opportunity to earn a starting position. And at the end of spring of '94, remember I was part of a club that I really didn't want to be a part of, the fat O-line club. And Coach Stallings sat us down in his office one day, and he asked each one of us what weight we thought we could play at the next year. And so we all gave him weight. We didn't know what he was getting at. And I gave him a weight of 285. I felt like I could play at and be effective. And at the end of all that, he writes all this stuff down. And he says, all right, you don't report back to camp at this weight, you don't get a suit. And I thought, oh my God, they are going to take my scholarship away from me. And so it was a new challenge for me. So I decided I was going to take a break that summer because I'd come to school and been in school every summer and been working out and all that stuff. And I was a little bit frustrated. And so I went home and found a little job I had and was going to do the workout at home. Right? So I get the workout package the very first day. I'll go to the track and I start running, and I'm looking at this, and I'm by myself, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't do this crap. And so I set it aside and decided I was going to do something else. And I decided I was just going to play basketball and walk to work every day, every single day unless it rained. Because the opportunity I had, I ended up staying at my girlfriend's mom's house that summer because my mom would let me come home. Now, it sounded kind of mean. I thought, I was really mad at my mom for not letting me come home. And she thought that if I came home, took a break from school, I wasn't going to go back. And so that was her thing. You go back. You need to go back. I said, no, Mom, I just need a little break. And so, but anyway, I stayed at my girlfriend's house that summer, and it was about, I guess the walk to work was about 3 miles or so, to and from. And unless it rained, I'd get a ride, but if it didn't, I was walking every day. And then I played basketball every day. And so I remember my position coach came down about halfway through the summer, wanted to check my weight and see my progress. And I was losing weight. He said, well, that's good, just keep up doing what you're doing. So I did that, and by the time we report to camp, I dropped more weight than I anticipated or set down as my goal. I dropped down to 270, and which was great. And I ended up running the conditioning test for the first time the day we had the conditioning test. And I ended up running it, I think about 3 or 4 times in a row because we had guys that were trying to pass the test, wanted to make sure that everybody made it because we needed everybody to be on the team. So anyway, so I ran it a bunch of times. It was the best shape I'd ever been in, and ended up earning starting position at the right tackle my junior year. And man, I'm on cloud 9. I'm just now starting to figure out the magnitude of what I was in the middle of, but I still wasn't quite there yet. Alabama football, it was huge. We had all the fans that knew who everybody was, and every week they'd come by and say hey to you. And the huggers, I don't know if you guys remember the huggers. Some of you may. They would call them the huggers. They were at the dorm every week, giving everybody a hug when we got ready to leave for a game. And so I knew that it was big, at this point. And I became a starter in '94. And at some point during the season, some people started talking a little bit that NFL could be a possibility for me, right? I had set things up for my degree. I was going to graduate by the end of my senior year, so things were looking pretty good. Well, actually, by the end of the season, my senior year, I was going to graduate and have a degree. And during the '94 season, I decided to get married. Got married December '94. We decided to do it then because we could make the bowl game our honeymoon. And we played Florida. We played Florida in the SEC championship game that year. If you remember that year, we lost by 1 point, and I got married the next day. So, so I didn't get any sleep. And so getting ready to get married, and we did that, and went on to the bowl game, and it was so much fun getting to do that. I'll tell you a funny story about Coach Stallings. And this was it was actually during the 93 season. Roosevelt Patterson, I think, was still there. He was a senior that year. And so I got to be roommates with Patterson, who's a starting right tackle. And there was a couple times that we missed our meetings that morning. We get a room service call, wake us up, and he'd always pick up the phone, hang up, and so I slept through. Didn't know it was time to get up and go. So anyway, know anything about Coach Stallings or most any coaches? They're pretty big on not being late for things, right? And so I missed a couple of meetings or late for a couple of meetings, and I don't remember what game it was, but I just remember there was a game in Birmingham, and everybody's leaving out of the locker room at the end of halftime, and I'm the last one leaving out. Coach Stallings is still in there, and he's hanging around, and just as I'm turning the corner, he grabs me by my belly button. He holds me, pulls me in close. Hey, Kareem, how about next time you're late for one of my meetings, I forget to put you on that travel list? I said, yes, sir, I won't be late again. And so I remember from that point on, I grabbed the phone and held on to that phone so I would pick it up. So I wouldn't be late again for another meeting. So, but that made a big impact on me at that point. So, get through my senior year, we got to play some really big games that year. I think we got nicknamed the Heart Attack Kids that year because we had a habit of coming back in the fourth quarter to win a lot of games. And we actually overachieved that year because we didn't have as much talent as some of the teams that we played, but we played some good ball and managed to do really well. And by the end of my senior year, playing in the Citrus Bowl, we played against Ohio State. We played against some really big names in that game, guys like Eddie George, Joey Galloway, Mike Vrabel, if you know that name, who was a head coach at the Tennessee Titans for a long time. So we played against some top-notch guys. Had a really good game that year. We won that game, and things started picking up a little bit more. That I might rank as an All-SEC player the next year, and NFL still picking up and all that kind of stuff. Go through spring. I have a good spring, and I'm going to be starting left tackle next year instead of starting right tackle. And things are looking good. So by the end of the spring year, May rolls around, and if you remember, it's May '95. News come out that Christopher Reeves had an accident, broke his neck, was paralyzed. And it was that May, and I remember thinking, oh no, not Superman, because that's what we knew him as, and he's paralyzed, and it was really sad, and that kind of stood out to me. A couple months later, July, 4th of July weekend, I go home for the 4th of July weekend to be with family, and I think it might have been July 3rd or so. And we go out to, me and my brother-in-law and a friend, go out looking for a place to play pool, and it was actually on a Sunday night. And the places that we checked, they were closed, and so we were actually on our way back home, my mother-in-law's house. And we were on a dark country road, back road, and my brother-in-law's driving. I'm in the front passenger seat, a friend's in the back seat, and we go to pass a car. And as we're trying to pass this car, the car speeds up, and don't know why, but they sped up. And we later on found out that person was drunk and had a history of drunk driving. And as we're trying to pass this car, traffic's coming, and found out that the car in front of us was sped up, and they were drunk. Right? And so my brother-in-law hurriedly got over in front of the other car that we tried to pass, and lost control of the car, went back across the road, hit a ravine, and went airborne in the air. And we're all three thrown out of the vehicle. I'm the only one wearing a seatbelt, and we believe that I broke my back coming out of the back of the car when the seat broke in the vehicle. They found me and my brother-in-law 80 feet away from the car over this barbed wire fence. We landed in a bed of rattlesnakes. I don't remember anything about, I don't remember any of that. I know we landed in a bed of rattlesnakes because a friend of mine, or classmate of my brother-in-law, who was a police officer, was one of the first ones to show up, and they had to kill the snakes so the paramedics could get to us. And his friend actually brought my brother-in-law one of the rattles from the snake from that night. And neither one of us had gotten bitten, which was amazing. And I don't know how many snakes they had to kill, but they had to kill several. And so during this time, I'm really thankful I don't remember much. I just remember bits and pieces. And I remember the paramedics had said that had I not been in the shape that I was in, I would have died because of how the impact of the accident. I had a partially collapsed lung, broke my back, and later found out I was paralyzed from the waist down. Went to they were going to fly me to Caraway Hospital, but during that time, with the helicopter on its way, a fog rolled in out of nowhere. So they couldn't see the land. And so they had to ditch that and drove me to Birmingham. And so I get to Birmingham and I ended up spending a week in ICU. They did surgery on me, put 2 stainless steel rods on my back to straighten me out and everything. And I think it was a couple of weeks before I realized what was really going on. And when I came to, I found out, Coach Stallings was there. Found out Hootie Ingram was the first one to show up at the hospital before I got there. He was there waiting on me. When he got the call, he got in the car, came on up. And so I had a lot of support from my Alabama family, my family, my mom, my wife, and before I understood what was going on, I've been married at this point 7 months, and here I am in the hospital, broke back, and I'm thinking, when do I get out? We got practice here coming up. It was my first thought, and I still didn't know how serious my injury was. And then the doctors were telling me, son, you're not going to be able to walk again. And I said, no, that's no way. That's not true. And so anyway, I couldn't feel my legs and couldn't move my legs and all that kind of stuff. And I spent about a month at Caraway Hospital. And during this time, they're telling me, you're going to go, when you leave here, it starts from here, you're going to go to Spain for rehab and everything, so you can get back to somewhat of a normal life. And my first thought was Spain. Why are they sending me to Spain? And so, and I'm thinking, they're still talking. We're gonna send you to Spain and everything. And I'm thinking, how's my mom gonna come see me in Spain? I said, this is America. Don't they have medicine here good enough to help me out? It's my thought. And so finally one day I said, well, how long is it gonna take to get there? And they said, oh, it's just 5 minutes now. It's just a block down the road. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Spain rehab at UAB. I had no idea where this was. And so I'm real thankful I didn't have to fly across the world, halfway across the world to get help. And so they discharged me from Spain, and I go to Spain rehab and then start my recovery there. And of course, you have to go through physical therapy, and I have to learn how to live life all over again. I had to learn how to get dressed and open doors and pick up things. And one of the hardest things I had to learn was how to get up when I fall. And I remember they sat me on this table in the physical therapy room. And we started playing this game. They started throwing a ball to me, and I had to catch it, and they throw it to me. And then they started throwing the ball out a little bit further, but I have to reach for it. So, trying to work on my balance and that kind of thing. And then finally they threw it where I couldn't reach it, and I had to dive for it. And I just threw my hand back, and the therapist said, no, you got to go get that ball. I said, no, if I do that, I fall. See, that's the whole point. You got to be able to pick yourself up. You got to do it. I said, I'm not doing that. I didn't want to do that. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed, And so finally, they convinced me to do it. And so I started falling over and picking myself up and learning how to do those kinds of things. And I even had to get up from the floor to my chair, which was really hard. And so we had to work on that and all those kinds of things. And so I get through Spain rehab and during this time I'm thinking, what does a guy in a wheelchair do to take care of his wife? That was my main priority. I've been married for 7 months and now this. Football's in front of me, had the opportunity to go to NFL, and man, this is tough. And during this time, I had to lean on my faith a lot. My church family and I thought about Job a lot during this time. The story about Job and the things that he went through, richest man in the East, right? And 7 kids, and he's just a really wealthy man, but one of the things that was noted that he was a perfect man. He eschewed evil. He didn't like it, right? But yet, all these bad things rained down on him. Lost his kids, he lost his wealth, and on top of that, the boils and things on top of his head, and then on top of that, his friends that came and sat with him for a while started railing on him, and it's bad enough he's got all this to think about, and now his friends are dumping on him. And then, got the next thing, his wife told him, why don't you curse God and die? Curse God and die. That's a tough place to be. It's a tough place to be when it seems like the world is against you, right? And then the next thing out of his mouth was, he told his wife to hush, you speak as one of the foolish women. And it says in all this, Job did not sin. He didn't blame God one bit, right? So if a man in that position didn't blame God, who was I? And I certainly wasn't in his class. This guy was an incredible believer. And so my first thought was, I can't blame God. I later learned that, we have an adversary. John 10:10 says, the thief cometh not, but for to steal, kill, and destroy. And Jesus said, but I am come, that thou may have life and have it more abundantly. And so that's where I have to lean on that, right? And so we go through all the rehab. I get out of there. I spent a total of a little over 2 months in the hospital. And I get out and I start back school at the university and graduate at the end of spring '96. And because I was going to graduate in December, but the accident kind of delayed things a little bit. So I get my degree, and my next thought, what does a guy in a wheelchair do to take care of his wife, right? Because my goal was, I was going to, play in the NFL, and if it didn't work out, I was going to have my degree. I was going to go back and do athletic training, and I wanted to be around sports and everything. So that part's not going to work out now. So I decided, Coach Stallings actually pulled me aside right when I graduated and said, Kareem, he said, I really think you ought to go work at Rise. I think it'll be good for you. And you guys know about Rise, the program, and what that program in school has meant to the community. And I said, okay, I'll go do it. And so I go there and had the opportunity to work with children that were born with disabilities, and there were kids there that didn't have disabilities. But I got to go there and watch these kids that were living their best life. They were having fun. They didn't know any better. So that disability didn't phase them one bit. They just dealt with it. And so, lo and behold, I go there thinking I'm going to go, be a help to them. They were a help to me. And I became a jungle gym, being in a wheelchair, wheel around. Kids loved climbing all over me, sitting in my lap, and I enjoyed when the opportunity, everybody come together and play, and I got to give tours and tell people all about the RISE program and what the RISE program was about and the benefit it was to those kids with disabilities, and why people should continue to support this program. And it was just a fun time. And I did not know how much of an impact of being at that school was going to have on me. And it had on me years later. So I get through at RISE, and I have one more year to go, and I still hadn't figured out what a guy in a wheelchair is going to do to support his wife. And so I decided I was going to be a graduate assistant teacher and teach personal health, and got involved with that and fell in love with teaching. Right? And during my time at RISE, I met a lady named Dr. Murphy, who came for a visit, and she kind of stood out to me on her visits. If you've ever met her, she's one of the most unique individuals you'll ever meet. You'll never forget her if you have a chance to meet her. She's from Boston, that area, and still has her Yankee accent. And but she's been in Tuscaloosa for 40 years, probably 50 years now, a long time. And so anyway, so I go through my program and graduate with a master's degree in health education. And so first thing I do is I reach out to Dr. Murphy. She was the founder of the Wellness Center at Shelton State Community College, and I knew that she had health classes and other things, and so I thought, well, I'll try and teach over there. So I wanted to do that. So I go to her and talk to her, and I said, Dr. Murphy, I'd like to teach personal health. Do you have any openings for that class? And she looks at me and she says, well, we don't have any openings for public health, or personal health. What do you think about teaching weight training? And in my mind, I thought, what the heck is a guy in a wheelchair doing teaching weight training? How am I going to do that? You know, so I said that in my head because I wanted a job, so I didn't tell her that. I said, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so I got in there, and I leaned a lot on the things that I learned from football and my background. My undergrad degree was in PE, so I knew some stuff, and of course with football, all the training we had, I just incorporated that. And so the first couple of weeks of classes each semester, what I did, because the classes were so big, we did football drills the first 2 weeks. And so I whittled the class down a little bit and got to the guys that were serious about weight training, and I really turned the weight training class around, and we stayed packed for years and years and years. And I learned how to teach weight training, and the interesting part about it was being able to communicate everyday movements of life for able-bodied people, to teach them how to lift weights, how to do a squat, how to do a bent over row, how to do a bench press, and all those things. And I was able to communicate that and became very effective at doing it. And it was a blessing. And during that time while I was there, one of the graduates from RISE started going to school at Shelton. Her name is Allison Gabriel. All right. And so it was so great to see her. We had a great time. I would see her every day and get to spend a little time with her, right? And she ended up graduating college and everything. So that was fantastic. Fast forward a few years later, I think it was about 2 years ago, all right? And living with paralysis, you know, I've been married for a long time, have 4 wonderful children, 2 sets of twins. I'll tell you about them in just a minute. But I had the opportunity. I was going through some depression and dealing with some stuff, and just feeling bad and down about a few things. And I'm going to the grocery store. I'm leaving out of the store, getting ready to get in my van, and I see this young lady walking into the store, and she is missing a leg. She has a prosthetic leg, and I recognize her walk. All right, and so I'm looking at this young lady, and I said, I know that walk. And while I was at Rise, there was a little girl, her name was Sophie, and she was a feisty little girl, and she was born with missing a leg. And so I remember during that time, she had a prosthetic, and she was very independent. I loved playing with her, and I just loved being around her because she was so feisty and just wanted to just get around and do whatever she could do. And so, you know how it is when you see somebody that looks really familiar and you're thinking, I don't want to ask this and it not be that person. That's embarrassing. But I made up my mind I was going to do it. So I stopped her when she was leaving the store, and I said, excuse me, I know this is weird but awkward, but is your name Sophie? And she said, yeah. I said, you go to Rise? I said, yeah. And I said, you won't believe this. You won't remember who I am because you were like 2 years old when I left at Rise. But I used to work at Rise, and I carried you around a lot and played with you guys at Rise. Your mom would remember who I am. But it is so cool getting to see you again. And so I got to talk to her for a couple of minutes. But it was just a reminder of what God has done for me over the years. There's so many times that God has come through, even though life wasn't going exactly the way I thought it would go. You know, got married and figured out what a guy in a wheelchair could do to take care of his wife. I became a teacher because that wasn't on my radar either. So I was kind of used to doing things that wasn't on my radar, you know. And so I've been teaching for, let's see, I started teaching technically in 1999. So I taught a year at the university as a graduate assistant, and then 21 years at Shelton, and now I'm in my completed my 3rd year, getting ready to start my 4th year at Alabama. And so I figured out what a guy in a wheelchair could do to take care of his family. And in the process, we had 2 sets of twins, and that's a story in itself. Never a dull moment. My children are now 22 and 18. My youngest 2 just graduated high school. My daughter is going to go to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill on a track scholarship. And her twin, Tyler, he's going to go to the university, and he was going to do track, but he fell in love with working and making money. And so he's going to work and go to school at the University of Alabama. And one of my oldest sons is at the university going to school. He didn't play sports too long into high school. He decided he didn't want to do it, so I didn't press him, and he just wasn't in love with it. So he's going to school at the university and studying MIS. So he's graduated from Shelton, and he's working on a degree from the University of Alabama. And so he's hoping to graduate in the spring of 26. And then my oldest son is at Clemson University, and or University of Clemson, and he's a walk-on the football team there. And he's actually a senior this year. He's going to graduate in the spring with a degree in middle school education, and so he's going to teach, and he wants to get involved in coaching, and so it's really exciting, and it's been a blessing to watch all these things happen for me in my life. And the biggest thing is I've had experiences in my life since I had my accident that I know that I would not have had had things gone the way that I thought it would have gone. I've got to learn things and understand things about who God is and how He can work in situations when things get really hard. I got to learn those things and see firsthand experiences that only God could have done. And then I had the opportunity to tell that story, how God worked and did things for me. I'll tell you this one last story that what God did for me one day. I don't share this one very often, but it was really cool. So I'm at the university. I'm doing my physical therapy and rehab. I'm swimming and working out and everything. And before they made all the changes over there with that facilities, now it used to be tennis courts between the aquatic center and the athletic facility. All right, and so there is a pathway. It wasn't a sidewalk, but it was a pathway from the aquatic center to the athletic facility that people had kind of worn out. And so after I got done swimming, I decided I was going to go this path. And I'd done it before without any issues. And one of the cool things about being in a manual chair, you get to pop these wheelies and kind of move around on 2 wheels and everything. So I felt pretty confident in doing that. And so I get to the part of the sidewalk, and it was a little bit uneven, a little more uneven than I estimated. And then when I went off, I fell out of my chair. And during the time I was there, I knew not a lot of people walked through there. I remember sitting there thinking, I said, all right, God, I said, either you're going to have to heal me so I can get up, or you got to send somebody my way to help me up. And so no sooner than I said that, this guy walks around the corner. He couldn't have weighed more than 170 pounds. Had an Army t-shirt on, mustache. And I still remember what he looked like. And he says, you need some help? I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, all right. So he gets behind me. He picks me up. And the thing that stood out to me the most, he picked me up so easy. I mean, it was like I didn't weigh anything. He sat me in my chair. He said, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And he said, yep, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. And he walks around the corner, and I thought, let me see where this guy goes. And so I turned around to go look for him, and he vanished. He was gone. And it was impossible for him to have gone in the building where we were. It was impossible for him to have crossed the street without me seeing him. But he was gone. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, that was an angel. And God sent somebody there to help me up. But I'm still over 200 some odd pounds. So I wasn't light. I lost a lot of weight while I was in the hospital, but I still know that I wasn't light. This guy picked me up like I was nothing. But the point is, God meets you where you're at. He knows who you are. He knows your heart. And he will help you no matter what the situation is. You just got to hang in there. Like Job, he hung in there, and eventually he got healed. He had 7 more children, doubled his wealth. Many cases in the Bible where people were healed. And God doesn't put a time stamp on when it will happen. It's on God's time. But it's always on time. It's always on time. And I've tried to teach my kids that it's always on time. And I want to leave you with this one verse that I learned when I was a little kid and I was mad at God. I was absolutely mad at that because my great-grandmother had died and I didn't understand why. And during that time, I made a promise to him. I said, if you'll teach me who you are, I want to learn. So I made up my mind to read the Bible. And I started in Matthew. All right? In this verse, Matthew 22:21, it said, whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believe you shall receive it. That was the first verse I memorized. And it stuck with me my whole life. And I quote that verse all the time. And it reminds me what God will do for you. Just lean on him. Just lean on him. And he'll be there. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed speaking. Do you have any questions?
Tell the story about going into the team meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Here's a neat story. Okay, so in 96, this is Coach Stallings' last year, coaching at Alabama. And I forget at what point, but Coach Fuller, he was the offensive line coach there, came to me one day, he said, Kareem, we want to do something for the team. We want you to come walk with the team. Because during my rehab, I was walking with straight leg braces and a walker, and I'm trying to learn how to walk with crutches and everything. And so, and remember, the doctor had told me I'd never walk again, but I'm walking with these straight leg braces and everything. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And he said, it's going to be a surprise, so don't say anything to anybody and everything. So we're going to do it the Auburn week. And so I said, okay, so I'm getting prepared for that. I get everything set up with the team of folks that are helping me at the rehab center in Northport and Coach McDonald's. You know, we're coordinate all this stuff and make it happen. So that Thursday before the Auburn game gets here, Coach, he's in a team meeting. So I get there and I go in with my chair, got my braces on, and I get positioned and get at the door, and I stand up and we interrupt this meeting, okay? And I walk into the meeting room and it just got so quiet in that room. And so I go in and I give the team a message, and I share with them one of the things that the doctors told me. Said, you know, Kareem, you'll never walk again. I said, you know what? I may not be walking the way I used to, but I'm walking now. I'm walking. And I said, if I can do that, you can beat Auburn. And so that ended the speech, and it was a real emotional time for all of us, and it was really cool. And so I go to the game that Saturday, go with a friend of mine, and this was at Legion Field, and I ended up sitting, I think it was the south end zone. And if you remember that game, Alabama jumped out to a good lead on Auburn in the first half. I think it was either 21-0 or something like that, and then they come back and score, and then they take the lead. And I can't remember if they took the lead in the third quarter or I think it was the third quarter they took the lead. And they had the lead for the rest of the game, right? And they were up by I forget what the score was, but anyway, they were up by enough that touchdown and the field goal would win the game for us, okay? And toward if you remember some details about that game, all right, so Coach McCorvey was the offensive coordinator, and all year that year, we were under center, you know, the whole game. And we were having trouble with what they were doing on defense because they would get to the quarterback, didn't have time to throw the ball. And I think it was Coach McCorvey, he said, how about let's just get shotgun, and let's do that. And ask the center if he could snap it. And we had made that adjustment during the game. And so got Freddie Kitchens back there where he could see, and that helped and everything. And we started moving the ball a little bit more. And toward the end of the game, this was the drive that everybody's familiar with, that we had to have it to win this game. And I remember in that game, I was going crazy in the sideline and waving this flag I had, and the guys on the offensive line on the team saw me and pointed at me and got really excited and hyped up and everything. And I said, all right, we're gonna go win this game. And so they turn around, and of course we know they drive the ball down the field and to win the ball game, right? And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't realize it during the game. But I get invited to the senior breakfast that week, the following week. And I also didn't realize that Coach Stallings had announced that he was going to step down as a coach. You know, I didn't know it at the time either. And so we get to the team breakfast, and they presented me with the game ball. And so Coach Stallings talking to me, and he says, you know, Kareem, I know you didn't play in the game, but I think you had every bit to do with us winning that game. And on the ball, he put 74 yards to score the winning touchdown. 74 is my jersey number that I wore at Alabama. And I thought, you know what? Only God could do something like that. And so, anyway, that was a really neat, fun story.